watching the video sermon podcast of First Baptist Church of Marble Falls, Texas. For almost 130 years, FBCMF has served Marble Falls and the greater Highland Lakes area faithfully through children's programs, youth activities, and adult discipleship. We invite you to join us each and every Sunday morning at 9 and 10:30 a.m. for deep fellowship, rich worship, and a spirit-filled message. For those who find themselves unable to attend on a Sunday morning, we stream those services. Simply visit fbcmf.live during either of our service times to view it. Never miss an archived sermon by subscribing to this podcast on YouTube by visiting youtube.com/FBCMFtube. And to learn more about our church or to listen to an audio-only version of this and other sermons, please visit us online at fbcmf.org.
Church, next Sunday morning, we are beginning a really neat sermon series called The Evidence for Faith. And many of you are well aware how the new and popular atheism claims that our Christian beliefs do not have a logical and a reasonable leg to stand on, that our beliefs are not or cannot be held up to the standard of reason and rationality. And so what I'm going to attempt to do is take some of our very important beliefs about the Word of God, and is it reliable, and why do we think it's reliable and valid? We're going to talk about the balance of the Bible and science. We're going to talk about the philosophical idea of truth and why God is reasonable and why our faith is reasonable. And what I hope happens starting next week for the next few weeks is that as you encounter, be it in many different ways, the media or some person in your life, or just kind of a feeling from the general ethos of our world that you don't know if your beliefs hold up to the skepticism of today's ideas, that hopefully after the sermon series you're going to be able to really rely on and be excited about what you believe in the Christian faith and how it does stand up to the skeptics that are out there. And we're going to answer a lot of those questions starting next week. And I want you to come and really get involved and participate in that sermon series. But this morning, I think that the Spirit is leading us to talk about something that's very, very important, that's going to unify us as a church and motivate us as a church family. This is an important message. And if you're visiting with us today, we're going to treat you like church family because I'm going to be exceedingly transparent about the direction and the vision of our church today. I quoted earlier Psalm 127:1. It says that if the builders do not allow God to do the building, then we all labor in vain to build it. And therefore, what we always say is any vision that we have, any idea or direction that the church has, we need to make sure that God is the one who is leading us and that it's in His will. And so often I'll stand in front of all of you and talk about the vision of the church by saying things like, I feel like God is for this. This is the will of God. Or we have been praying and this is the direction that God is leading us. And I use all of that kind of language. And I want y'all to know right now that when I say things like that, like God is for this and we need to do it, that I'm taking a huge risk in saying things like that. That language, to use God as a catalyst or a trump card to say that this vision is a God-ordained kind of movement, is risky language. It's always risky to claim that God is leading any group or any person in a certain direction, and here's why. You can probably guess. Preachers, government officials, oftentimes motivational speakers and other people sometimes use the God is for this rhetoric in order to get people to buy into an idea or to rally people behind a certain cause or an idea. And sadly, there are times when that language is used and God is not for that idea. And in fact, He might be against it, or He's leading in a totally different direction. And yet, you have somebody standing up in front of you saying, you need to be involved in this because, and then they use the big word, God is wanting all of this to happen. And it's just so easy to say. It's easy to say, we're going to do this because God is for it. And so all of these years when I've talked about vision in the direction of our church, here's what I would be asking myself, and what you've probably thought is, Ross, how do you know? You want us to be involved and do something. How do we know that God is really for this? Because we've heard that kind of language before. The reason that some people use we need to do this because God is leading us to do it language is because it really can. Some people manipulate with that kind of language. It's easy to manipulate good, God-honoring, God-loving kinds of people because they think, well, I love God and I care about my leader, and so when the leader says that God is for something, then I guess, yes. So I don't want to be against God, for heaven's sakes. And so what it does is anytime a leader says God is for something, it always puts Christians in a very peculiar place. It's just easy to always say and to claim God is on our side. God has ordained something and he is for us in this kind of endeavor. It's a little like that. I heard a funny story a long time ago. Many of you will remember the Washington Redskins coach, George Allen, a long time ago. That was during the time when George Allen and the Washington Redskins and Tom Landry and the Dallas Cowboys were the greatest rivalry in the NFL. And as the story goes, Coach George Allen dies and he goes to heaven, and who does he meet at the pearly gates? St. Peter. And St. Peter says, welcome, Coach Allen, I'm glad you're here. Come on in, and I'm going to show you your heavenly home. And he takes the coach in and shows him this beautiful cottage with a great big Washington Redskins flag coming out of the roof of it. And he says, this is great. But then he stops as he's about to go in the door, and he looks up, and on the hill there's this beautiful, biggest mansion he's ever seen in his life with a gigantic Dallas Cowboy flag coming out of the roof. And he stops and he says, hold on, how is it that I get this little cottage and Tom Landry gets that big, beautiful mansion? And of course, St. Peter says, well, Tom Landry doesn't own that mansion. God owns that mansion. You need to understand. And I hear that, and I tell you, I want to say amen to that. I want to say it, but I better not. You may find it hard to believe, y'all, but did y'all know that there seriously are people who will hear jokes and things like that, and that's honestly their theology. Like they biblically believe weird things like that. It's not a joke. Theologically, God is a Dallas Cowboy for them. But when people literally believe things like that God is for them no matter what, he's always has his hand and he's ordaining what they're doing, always giving them the vision for it all, that kind of arrogance is a bad idea. That is a bad idea. Did you know that a lot of people have gotten into trouble when they use God and they abuse God? It's almost blasphemous. Wouldn't you all agree? When you use God to just you use it to rally someone to something, and you hope God might be for it, but you don't know. You don't use God like that. In Micah 3:11, all of the people of Israel who are the real chosen people of God, they were acting in ways that was very ungodly. They were not in God's will. They weren't. They were idolatrous. They didn't care about justice to people. The list goes on. And so because of that, God tells the prophet, I'm going to destroy the people of Israel. And so when the prophet would say, God is pulling away from you, he's going to destroy you, all of the people said, no, he's not. He is really for us. He's given us a vision. He has his hand on us. No matter what we do, it doesn't matter. God is always for us. And Micah in 3:11, he quotes the people saying this. So right in the middle of their horrible behavior, and God is about to destroy them, really, Micah says, it's odd to me that this is what you're saying. I have it on the screen here, Micah 3:11. So they're behaving awful, and then they say, well, is not the Lord among us? It's a rhetorical question, and all the people would say, yes, he's here with us, and therefore, so no disaster is ever going to come upon us. People have used the idea, well, God is always for this idea or for these things, and as if God will never challenge them or send them in a different kind of direction or give them something different. During World War I, it happened in World War II as well, but during World War I, people used God in all of the different groups going to fight one another. All of them claimed that God was on their side. And in World War I, the German Emperor Wilhelm II, who also served as a bishop of the Prussian church, he delivered a speech to all of his troops, and this is what he said. And y'all, it's pretty alarming because you think, oh my goodness, he went there? And as the troops, man, they should have said, whoa, everybody should have said that. But here's what the president, the emperor of Germany said. He said, remember that the German people are the chosen people of God. You put up a red flag immediately. And he says, on me, as the German emperor, the Spirit of God has descended. I don't think so. And he says, I am his weapon, his sword, and his visor, death to cowards and unbelievers. So what does he do? He puts Christian people in a position that if you disagree with him, you're disagreeing with who? Well, where does that leave anybody? If you disagree with me, buddy, you're disagreeing with God. And so people are trapped. Do y'all see how this traps people? Well, during this time, preachers would use the same kind of language, and they would begin to put this kind of state militaristic movement, and they would combine it with the theology of the church and somehow baptize all of it using God in this kind of way. This is what preachers said during this time. And I have, if any of y'all wonder, Ross, where did you get this? I have the books, I know the page numbers even, where these came from. Here's the quote. This is a preacher. The German national soul is saturated with the Spirit of God. Saturated. God is all in with what we are doing. God is for us. He's saying, we fight for this soul on behalf of the world because we know that it is a work of God that contains God's blessings for the entire world. So when they go out to do all the things the German army was about to do, they're doing it because it is the will of God. God is for all of these things. In church, lots and lots of people use this kind of language and do this. And when I read it and when I talk to all of y'all as I am about a vision for our church and the direction that we can go, it is a sobering reminder for me to slow down and for all of us when we talk about God's leading to very humbly, very prayerfully ask the real biblical question, and that is God truly a part of this direction that we're talking about? Or would he rather us do something else, rather than assuming that he is automatically always for everything that we're doing, no matter what we do? And sometimes we can be doing something good, but God wants us to do something different, or maybe even something much, much better. I prefer the way that Abraham Lincoln looked at all of this when during the Civil War, all of the people in the South were saying, God is on our side. And all the people in the North were saying, no, God is on our side. And Lincoln wisely said, the question is not whether or not God is on our side. The greater question is whether or not we are on God's side. Looking for that and using the language of how God is leading us more wisely and to slow down and to make sure that really as a church, especially as a church, that we are where the Lord wants us to truly be. And so here are two exciting vision, life-changing things in our church's immediate future that's beginning right now immediately. This is a forecast for our church. And as I talk about this, I want you to be thinking, do I believe that this is really from God? Or is it something that is manufactured or man-made? And so we're going to push back against the vision, but I want to give it to you for a moment. The first thing is this. Our church is going to do a revival that we're calling Revive 2020. Here is the vision. From right now all the way until the early first week in June next summer, June of 2020, we are building toward an exciting time of revival. It's going to be a time of spiritual renewal for all of us and a time of outreach and healing to our community. It's going to last 5 days, and we're working right now on bringing in 5 amazing preachers to preach 5 different nights. And during that time, we're going to have great music and concerts and fellowships in the evening times after the revival is over in the evenings. But during the daytimes, there's going to be special Bible studies, youth events, children's events, age-specific conferences, marriage workshops, and community projects to do outreach for our town and our county and our schools, and do everything that we can to make a difference in the lives of people in our area. And so it's outward focused, it's missions and evangelism, but it's also a very important time of spiritual renewal for all of us. Many of you have not experienced a spiritual renewal since you went to youth camp a long time ago. Adults need spiritual renewal as well. And so we're beginning right now to start praying for Revive 2020. But on top of that, we have another vision. We have several building projects that we're working on right now through our All-In capital fundraiser. And All-In has already done well. It's already provided a new parking lot out here, and it's landscaped this part of the building so that we can be good neighbors to all of our La Ventana community and area. But the big thing that All-In did is it eliminated over $1 million worth of debt that we have immediately been able to put back into ministry and missions. And now our regular church budget handles all of the debt we have without hurting the real worship and ministry, so that it helps us keep the main thing. But there are 2 more things that the All-In fundraiser is always supposed to do, and we've talked a lot about it. It's what it's also supposed to pay for. And here is one. We are remodeling our pavilion, and we're glassing it in right now. It's going to have a full kitchen. It's going to be beautiful. The fireplace is still going to be in it. It's going to have doors that you can still open up and enjoy a breeze, but you can shut it as well. It's really going to be nice with a full sound system. And it is going to be a place where it's going to give us room to expand in Sunday school, in Bible studies, in our healing ministries. It's going to be a place where fellowships and meeting space can happen, and it's going to be a beautiful place that takes massive pressure off of our sanctuary right here. And we already have plans for this. There are architects' plans and renderings, and we have a great builder for it. Our own church member, Doug Holly, is our contractor for this. And he's so good, but I'm excited. I want to show you the plans for this already. So here's the floor plan. It's simple. We're expanding the kitchen out, where it's going to have storage and expanded bathrooms. The fireplace is still on one end. And so if you had a Bible study during the wintertime, you could build a fire and invite people to come to it. I think that it would be in a great place for it. And here is a quick look of what the outside might look like with some glassed-in walls and doors. But on top of that, and our church needs this, but on top of this, there's something more important, perhaps, even that our community needs. And here is this. This All-In capital fundraiser is also helping our church to build a mission center on Avenue R. It's going to house our church's food pantry, which fed over 6,000 people last year. It's also going to house the soup kitchen that feeds people in our community Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And third thing that it will do, it's going to house, y'all, the exciting new First Baptist Counseling Center, and which I need. The Counseling Center, we've been praying about it, and there is a movement among our members that are getting ready to lead the Counseling Center. We're modeling it after Hyde Park Counseling Center. And it is really going to be special. This building will house that and healing ministries for our community, things for children in that neighborhood to come to after school. Latchkey children can come there perhaps. It is really going to be a blessing in many, many ways to our community. And the space that it will have will be able to be a space where community leaders during disaster times like the flood that we recently had in our community, community leaders can come and pray and plan and think about how to respond to tragedies in our community. And y'all, we have pictures of this as well. Look at this. Here's the floor plan for it. The pink side on the far left, that is the chapel and the kitchen. And you can worship in the chapel area, but you can eat. It's the fellowship hall, kind of like this room right here is. And we could put a satellite church in there on Sunday mornings if you want to. And then you have kind of that middle section. There's the food pantry. And it has a great waiting area, which our current food pantry doesn't have, where when people come in, they're given dignity of being there, and we can talk to them about the Lord and talk to them about their life, and there's room to do that now. And if a special little counseling moment needs to happen, they can go down the hallway into the meeting rooms down on the other end. And so then the new counseling center is this yellow area right here. There are big bathrooms on the other side of that, and big meeting rooms as well. And so it's just going to be an amazing thing. And then let me show you what the outside is probably going to look like. Look at this. Isn't that pretty? That's on Avenue R. And when people come up to it, it's going to feel like they're coming into a house of worship. And it's going to be an exciting place to be for them. And then look at this. You know, a neat tower outside of it, like a bell tower that just demonstrates to the community that this is a place of hope, to come here to it. And one of the unique things about the Mission Center is this. We need your help to build it. In the very same way that if we were doing a mission trip in Mexico or a mission trip somewhere and we had a building project going on, men, and we asked all of you to come and bring your families because we're going to build somebody a church or build a school in a certain area, and we ourselves are going to build it. We honestly need your help to help construct all of this. We're going to do it with our labor. Starting next week, there's going to be a little booth out in the Great Hall, and you can start signing up and getting ready. Sunday school classes. You can, get your class and do the sheetrocking in it and things like that. This is our mission project to build a mission center. We have about $700,000 on hand right now, which is enough to start moving. And so guess what? We are breaking ground in November during Missions Month, to kick off Missions Month. In November, we're breaking ground and we're starting to move forward with it. So it's moving forward, and we have about $700,000 to do it, which is going to really propel us forward. The second story of it, we would like to put kind of a shell on the second story. We don't have enough funding to get there. If we had about $300,000 more, we think we could build the shell so that we have room to expand into. And with all of these things, if any of you have committed to All In, to say, yes, I want to be a part of it, I encourage you to fulfill your commitment that you and your spouse have made to that, but maybe some of you never got involved with it at all. If you want to help make these dreams happen, and you think that they're of God and they're important, I invite you, be a part of this. Help us make it happen. We need your help with a lot of it. And so I look at these things, but then the big pushback happens right here. Are they genuinely God-ordained? Or are they just something that a couple people have thought about? And so what I'd like to do is conclude the sermon like this. I'm going to put this vision, both of these things, to the test. I'm going to show y'all the 5-way vision test that you can use in your life to determine if something really is God ordained and if God's hand is in it. And here it is. The idea, is this really God's will for us? This is the 5-way vision test, the criteria to measure these things. And here it is, the 5-way vision test. Number 1, does the Bible speak positively about this vision and not just taking a passage out of context and twisting it to make it say what you want, but does it legitimately say, yes, the Bible has evidence that this has happened before? Number 2, will this vision bring glory to God, or will it bring glory to one person or a small group of people? Who is it going to glorify in the end? Are we trying to promote ourselves or promote the Lord? Number 3, is God stirring the heart of not just one, but many leaders for this vision at this time, and do they believe it's reasonable? So that it's not just a dictator or not just one saying, yes, God is for this, but it is the unanimous heart's cry of the church to say, we have to do it. We have no other choice. We have to. Let's do it. Is it that? That's number 3. Number 4, if people were involved with it, would it help or hurt their relationship with Christ? And number 5, and this is a big one, where does it fall on the faith scale? Here's the faith scale. The faith scale is a spectrum from left to right. On the far left, you have the idea of faith, and it is called pathetic vision. You have an idea to do something, but it's pathetic vision on the faith scale. It's way over here to the left, and that is something that is boring. It is something we can do with our eyes closed, and it does not cost anybody anything. It's when a preacher, a leader stands up in front of you and gives a vision that is so pathetic and weak, everybody yawns and they say, we've already done that. We can do it easy. That sounds fine to us. Pathetic vision to the far left. Right here in the middle of the spectrum, you have a place called resource-dependent vision. And here's what it means. This is a big vision, but we have the resources to do it. No big deal. If we just pull together, we have all of the human resources, financial resources, we have the tools, we have everything we need. It's a big vision, but we know we can do it because we have what it takes. Resource-dependent vision, and we're good. Now, to the right of resource-dependent vision is a thing called God-dependent vision. And this is when we have some of the resources, maybe even a lot of the resources to put towards something, but it's so big that we don't have all the resources unless God shows up. It's going to need God if it's going to succeed. And it forces us to exhaust ourselves, not just in planning and preparation, but we exhaust ourselves in passionate prayer and fasting so that God and His Spirit come and does something that we never dreamed would happen. This, in the God-dependent vision, is where we see most of the people in the Bible. Moses had some resources, but he didn't have all of them. Abraham had some, but he didn't have all of them. Gideon had some, but he didn't have all the resources. They had to have God to show up. A little boy one day goes when there's 5,000 people. He has some resources, a few fish and a couple loaves of bread. He has some, but he doesn't have all. In order to do what God wanted him to do, they were dependent on God. It's a God-exciting, God-dependent kind of thing. It's when we might have 60% of the resources, but if this is going to succeed, God has to show up with the 100% and come with everything He has for us. And so this is to the right of the middle. Now, if you kept going all the way to the right on the other side, the far side of the spectrum is called idiot vision. And that is where it's totally illogical, it's unreasonable, it's ungodly, and it borders on superstition, where if somebody gets up and they cast a vision that is so out there, if I stood in front of you and say, we're going to solve world hunger, First Baptist Marble Falls, you would say, we need a pastor who's a little bit more realistic to give us something that we can really, but the idiot vision on one side, the pathetic vision on the other. the resource-dependent vision in the middle, but right here to the right of middle, a God-dependent vision. When we talk about it, this is how we evaluate it. So apply now this 5-way vision test to what I've said to all of you today. Is it biblical? Does it give God glory? Do a lot of people feel a stirring for this and not just one? If somebody is involved with it, will it strengthen their walk with God? And is it a God-dependent vision? When I think of Revive 2020, when I think of a mission center, and when I think of people meeting and able to expand Bible study and Sunday school, and what it does with all of us when we sacrifice to build it and to give to it, when I think of all of that, I just, over and over, 1 checks and 2 checks and 3, and I start thinking, it's not just about one person. I think that it's real. And so very humbly, I present it as an idea that we're not just saying, God, why don't you be for something we're doing? It appears like it's something God is doing. And He is allowing all of us the great privilege to be a part of something that He is doing in our community and in our church.
You've been watching the video sermon podcast of First Baptist Church of Marble Falls, Texas. Never miss an archived sermon or video posted to our YouTube channel by subscribing to it at youtube.com/FBCMF2. For more information about our church and to hear an audio-only version of this sermon, please visit us online at fbcmf.org.